Alright, we are going to do a Setzer run here, and just like with X-Death, the laws of the universe mean nothing to Setzer. Just don't run them together because they ignore each other's traits as well. Anyways, I'm going to do something a little unconventional here, which tends to happen with Setzer. Wait for it. Yep, we're bringing out the BT ace, friend ace, right away. And the reason I'm doing this is because I'm going to be relying on Setzer's fixed dice buffs for a lot of damage, and bringing in a friend can kind of make that whole thing awkward, let's just say. But I'm going to start with Beatrix applying her buffs to everyone, so that way I don't worry about not having enough buffs. And we got Ace to apply his traps from his LD before the enemy took a turn, and the enemy is taking a turn. And yeah, everybody's still hitting very, very hard thanks to Ace's BT effect. And so we don't need Setzer to provide his fixed dice buff to our allies just yet. So what I'm doing now is I'm using calls, and I'm going to use C65s to run Ace's trap effects down before he gets his next turn. Although, then I realize, wait a minute, I really only have to do this before the enemy gets their next turn, because I'm going to use Jackpot Triad again to apply his, I don't remember what it's called, his face down card buff, whatever. And so now that's not going to switch to the trap that deals its damage until either Ace gets another turn or the enemy gets a turn. And I have, well, yeah, I think I'm going to push him back here. Eventually that guy's going to break, but their orbs are gone because friend Ace just does so much bloody damage. Now if I Jackpot Triad here, I think I'll miss out on one activation of the trap on B, but whatever. Sometimes that's just how it goes. We're going to bring Jack out here now, and this will again help Ace's traps to tick down before his next turn. That's why we're using C65s from Setzer, which normally I would just completely ignore in this anyways. Another call to, oh, it did some decent damage, but another call to trigger the traps, and then another C65, and then the unconventionalism will continue as I use Setzer's Dive Bomb to give fixed dice to both Beatrix and Ace. I should be using Beatrix's LD here, because you want to use Shock when she has the most amount of fixed dice ticks, but we're going to use Arciela call here to not only give the nice speed down, but the HP silence and trigger Ace's traps. And for some reason I did not LD. I think I'm just saving them for later if I had to guess, but that's going to be my plan for later. And so we'll use the HP attack here to reapply the traps. And now what I want to do, two things to keep in mind here. One, I don't want the enemies to get a turn yet, so I'm either going to do that with, yeah, see, those traps are still triggering and the rainbows are still happening. That's why I wanted to make sure I applied the fixed dice buff to Ace before he left, so that way he'll keep it. And yeah, let's keep triggering those rainbows. Strago doesn't have the fixed dice buff right now because Ace was in when that happened, but Strago hit so hard with his LD that he didn't really need it. So we have 4 fixed dice remaining on Beatrix, which is still pretty good. I want to again keep the enemy from getting a turn. Also to keep my debuffs on them lasting a good amount of time. But I hold off on Shock, and we're still hitting pretty darn hard. The traps are kind of hit and miss at this point. And I needlessly apply the freeze debuff, because after I did that I realized, wait a minute, the enemy had HP silence on. But whatever. Beatrix still hitting very, very hard thanks to the fixed dice and her defense ignore. And now we gave the enemy a turn when we wanted them to get a turn, and Ace's traps are still going. So I hope I explained that quick enough. Strago is going to Quasar, and he doesn't have fixed dice, so we didn't get rainbow numbers, but Quasar still hits very, very hard, especially with its defense ignore. The Arciela call has applied a very nice speed down to the enemy, so we have a good amount of breathing room here until their next turn. And now we're going to Dive Bomb to refresh fixed dice on Beatrix and apply it to Strago so he can join in on the rainbow fun. Hope I was able to explain everything as it flashed by at double speed. But yeah, that ace friend did a lot of damage. And I don't have to worry about running out of Setzer LDs at this point, which sometimes you have to worry about. Let's see, why Beatrix? I brought Beatrix for the extra hits, so she has the Rose Petals follow-up when she attacks, and when anyone on the team gets attacked, providing very specific conditions are not missed, which it's very easy to do. But anyways, did I shock with her? I must have done shock with her earlier, but I summoned in order to keep the enemies from taking a turn because I want my debuffs to go as long as possible. No other reason. That's why I'm delaying them as much as I can with Setzer as well. Beautiful damage for a Lufenia Plus when the enemy is so close to death, but we're about to knock them below their final threshold. Let's see, Setzer has blue armor and Strago has blue armor. Beatrix does not. I think she's 0 out of 3 with her armor updates. Just checking the amount of fixed dice before I have to refresh it. And still killing it. A Grand Delta here to knock them back a little bit. To again try and keep those debuffs going as long as I can. It's not the end of the world if they take a turn, especially since they have the freeze debuff on them. I mean, I know Beatrix heals and everything, but they're not going to deal any damage. They don't cleanse themselves unless they use the ++ version of their skills. And I feel like they use it sometimes just randomly, but like if they come out of break or something on their turn, I don't know. They're not going to use it here. But look at that, they're just Arciela's speed down is giving us a lot of breathing room to do whatever we need to do. And with launches, with Setzer on the team, Brave attacking in a launch is not the worst thing ever because, as you can see here, you get a good amount of Brave. But if you already have a lot of Brave, then just HP attack. And Setzer knocks them back a bit. Strago's EX hitting for a lot of damage there, considering it had no defense ignore or anything like that. We're going to do a nice little launch here again, and Brave attack in it to battery everybody up for their next turn. There's a lot of battery for Strago, jeepers. Why go with the Ifrit summon as opposed to something else? Well, I guess just wanted the extra damage for before we applied fixed dice with Setzer to everyone. And I feel like it doesn't matter too much which Esper you pick. The Espers in this game are Eidolons. Which Esper you pick when you have Setzer on the team, because everybody's, they don't really need extra max Brave, and they don't really need extra attack. So I've gone Shiva in before for the extra speed, but a lot of times I don't know if we're below our initial Brave, so I didn't go for it this time, and I thought, just pick Ifrit for the attack because when I had Ace out at the beginning, wasn't going to have the rainbows going. And I guess I could have gone with pretty much any Esper though. And they're basically done here. I'm gonna Grand Delta, even though You know, you'd think I'd use a Quasar and EX, but I'm gonna Grand Delta just to keep them from getting a turn anyways. But that's it. Feel free to like this video if you want to make me feel better about myself, or comment below if you want to see more videos where I talk about strategies or whatever. And thank you for watching.